Chapter 9, Refactoring to MVC. Till now, we have been putting all our code into index.js. For example, all the request handlers app.get and .post are in the same file. This is not the best approach when our app grows or if we're building a more complex app as index.js becomes too complicated and unmanageable. Thus, we will refactor our code adhering to a common pattern called the model view controller or MVC pattern. That is, we divide our application into three interconnected parts: model, view, and controller. Model represents the structure of the data, the format, and the constraints with which it is stored. In essence, it is the database part of the application. As you might already notice, we already have that in our models folder currently storing the blog post model. View is what is presented to the user. Views make use of the model and present data in a manner which the user wants. From the view, users can make changes to the data presented to them. In our app, the view consists of static or dynamic pages rendered to users. The pages are stored in a views folder storing various EJS files to render static and dynamic HTML websites. Lastly, we have controller, which controls the request of the user and then generates appropriate response rendered back to the user. That is, a user interacts with the view, which generates the appropriate request, which is handled by the controller, which then renders the appropriate view with the model data as a response. We already have the model and view layer. In this chapter, we will refactor our code to create a controller layer by creating a controllers folder to store our request handlers. So create a new folder, controllers, and in it create a new file, new post. This file will contain the controller handling the request from the user to create a new blog spot. So we have new post, and then we have model.exports. We have a request and a response, and then when a new post is made, we will render this create page. In index.js, we then replace the below request with const new post require controller. So now we remove the get request, and we require our new post. So we require the create page. That is, we move the existing request handler function to a separate controller file, newpost.js. This helps to make index.js smaller and provide better organization by separating controller details into each of their own file. For simplicity in our project and allow us to focus on the essentials, we remove the about, contact, and sample post pages since they are just standard static HTML pages. So we remove the post, the contact, and the about. We also remove them from the navigation bar because they no longer basically exist. This leaves us to refactor the home page, store post, and get individual post request handler. In controllers folder, create a home.js, store post.js, and get post.js. So in home, we require the blog post, and then we have model exports async request response const blog post awaits blog post don't find, and then we render the index page that has the blog post that have already been made. And then we do the same in get post to require blog post.js, and we have const blog post equals to await blog post find by ID. Request params ID console.log the blog post basically, and those are the blog posts, and this is where we basically store where our image will be stored. So this is where our image will be stored, and once the post is made, we are redirected to the index page. Note that we need to import path. We also need to add to path resolve, because we have to go up one folder before referring to public image /image. In index.js, import the following controllers we have created. So we import controllers home, controllers post, and controllers get post. Make the following changes to the request handler to call the new controller function. So app.get, we get the home controller. With app.get also get post controller and stop post controller. Because index.js no longer requires path and block post, we can remove them. A refactoring validation layer. We can take it further and put our validation middleware into its own folder. Create a middleware directory in it. Create a new file, validation middleware.js. So we have validation middleware. And then after validation middleware, we import it, and then we remove the previous middleware function, because we are importing it from middleware validate middleware. If you run your app now, the validation should take place as before. With this, we have refactored our middleware code. If you run your app now, the form validation should take place as before. With this, we have refactored our middleware code. In this chapter, we refactored our project code into the model view controller pattern, which makes our code more manageable and organized. We particularly implemented controllers and extracted code away from index.js, preventing it from being messy.